So let's pivot, and I want to talk about whenever you're looking at a business, right? And you see a law firm, and what patterns do you typically see in the ones that are growing steadily versus maybe the ones that get stuck?
So the ones that are growing steadily, they're constantly focused on increasing leads, but they're also obsessed with intake because if you're not if you it's just such a critical piece. Like it is the point in which like that's where the money's made. And so people that fall flat on that is where I see pretty much the most detriment. And then as they're growing, the ones that really nail it is they got their numbers in order. Like they can tell you what their acquisition costs are. They can tell you what their cost per lead is. Like they're using CallRail, they're tracking their leads. But the thing where I see most people screw up, and even like 1 to 4 million, like I see across different revenue levels all the time, is somebody might have a CRM, but it's set up improperly or it's not being used by staff. And it's often a combination of both, where they're paying for CRM. Not all the staff uses it the same way. So you'll go in there and you'll see like tasks that are super late that were generated or whatever nobody did anything with. Or you'll see stuff where you have like a gazillion leads in a pipeline that it's like, when do you close lost these things? Like, how are you dispositioning these leads? And so nobody knows. And then what happens also is like, yeah, they're using CallRail, but it doesn't pass that data into their CRM all the way, because a lot of these like legal tech, like tools, like their integrations don't necessarily work ideally. Like, like CallRail and LawMatics, for example, that integration leaves something to be desired because it doesn't pull in the information the correct way because of how their forms work. But once you can solve that, you know exactly what's working and what's not, plain and simple. So you can sit there and go, okay, like here's how much we put in the LSAs, here's how much we put in the Google ads, which one's making us more money. And if you're doing that every month, like you're going to know exactly what to do. And ideally, if you do that every week, now you can actually do something about it, right? And I think the data part, and as a business grows, it's like, well, what are the issues you deal with? Well, that your processes haven't caught up to where you're at because you maybe grew fast and you didn't have the damn process. Or then maybe you hired quickly, maybe badly, and then now you have people where you don't have your processes buttoned up or documented. Now you've had to hire a bunch of people. You don't have time and you don't have processes, so you're not training these people well. And so then that's where I see like the cluster of issues that kind of stalls firms out at like that 1 million, 2 million mark, because they don't know, like they don't have visibility into what staff's doing. They don't necessarily have like a framework for accountability. And then their data is kind of all over the place. So it's like, yeah, they can probably get to it, but it's like a manual true up where they might have to pull the leads from the CRM, pull the data from CallRail, try to match it up. And because it takes a little bit, nobody ends up doing it. You don't have the information you need to know what's working or not, you know?
Yeah, and so it's funny you mentioned all that, because one of the things I want to ask you about is because you've said before that a lot of firms they'll hit that ceiling at 7 million or at seven figures, so at 1 million or less, they'll kind of hit that ceiling and they won't be able to go any further. And I mean, what do you think? What do you think is, if you're going to point to one thing, right? Because there might be multiple things, it could be, marketing, it could be the operations, it could be a leadership problem. I mean, it could be a lot of different things, it could be processes, but what do you think is the number one issue? And it may not be the same issue for everybody. Like what's the main issue that causes that ceiling to be in place?
A business is going to grow up to its most like current restraint, right? Or constraint, I should say. And so oftentimes it's going to be whoever started the business, they've brought it to that level and they just don't know what to do, right? Like, and then now it's like, since you're a pilot, it's like changing an engine on a plane you're flying, right? It's like you got all these moving parts, you don't have the time, you don't have all that stuff. And so I think one of the things that can help solve that is you need a real operator. Like you just really need to have like a solid number two that can legit take stuff off your plate. So, and have like a divide and conquer type mentality, because you can dump more in the ads, you can dump more in this, you can dump more into that, but there's so many moving parts in a business that it's like, you got to get the foundational elements in place, and I think the data is probably the thing to start with. And oftentimes I see that people will get like, let's say a fractional something or something like that, or a marketing specialist, right? And I see this a lot actually in the legal space where a firm's growing, they're humming along, maybe they're working with agencies and stuff like that, and then they get a marketing person that literally doesn't have the expertise of somebody that can run Google Ads or do SEO or build a website or any of this stuff. And I know why they did it. They're like, I don't understand marketing, or I don't have time to do it, and I don't want to deal with this shit, so I'm going to hire someone else to do it. And then what happens is they just keep like spreading their marketing dollars around. They're not concentrating their forces. And at the end of the day, it's like you kind of got to bite the bullet and understand the stuff. And the easiest way to understand it is just to track the KPIs so you know what's working or what's not. Then it's not an emotional decision, but it's also constructive at that point, because whoever you're working with, you go, okay, I need this many consults per week to make sure it's good. And that's probably the single best metric to track, regardless of what practice area you're in. Like if you're looking at your consults per week, that's generally going to tell you, you know, what your revenue is going to be, or how you should close out each month. Because it's like, if you're going to track anything weekly, I would 100% track that on a scorecard, have people responsible for it, set up, you know, a weekly team meeting where you have a specific agenda, and then you go through everything. So everybody's on the same page. You always have next steps on how to solve whatever problem you're dealing with.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, it's obviously a good one. Though I started to grin when you were talking about fractional stuff, because I think that there are some really good fractional executives, but there's also some people out there that don't know what they're doing, and so people they'll tend to, you know, hire people because they think that that's the next step, because it probably is the next step, but they end up hiring the wrong person, and you know, that fractional person doesn't do anything, and they're not tapped into the firm enough to really understand, you know, the culture or anything else. And I think that's kind of interesting. For us, our key number, the one that we look at, is our average fee. It can tell me a lot of different things. It can tell me, all right, maybe, and it always takes some diagnosing, but if the number starts to slip, all right, maybe we're not signing the right cases. Maybe we're doing something during the process of the case that, you know, it's affecting the case, or if it's going up, it's the same thing. So it allows us to dial in a lot of different things, which having those numbers is absolutely important. I 100% agree with you. I think that's extremely crucial.
One problem that I think that this is probably relevant for anybody and everybody, and because I've done this myself, because I think at some point when you really need to start hiring and getting people in there so you can get bandwidth, you know, a lot of times when you're in that phase, like you're busy, you just literally want help, right? And the problem with, I think a lot of people do this, I've done it myself, I've seen it done a lot, is like hiring is a volume knob. It's not a light switch. Like you don't just you can't abdicate your responsibility, like, okay, cool, I'm hiring you, I'm paid, I'm fucking peace. Like I'm gonna go do this. Like you literally got more work in front of you at that point, especially if you don't have the processes, but you have to be training anyway. And so I feel like that's where people kind of drop the ball quite a bit, and then they end up getting frustrated. And you know, it's like going back to kind of the stoic route. It's like you should be blaming yourself, because if you had the right systems and you had the right structure and you approached the training the right way, and you had zero doubt that they know what to do, then you know you can sit there and you know, pass something off and know that it's not going to just bounce right back to you.